So tell me what your connection is with Willie Soutar.
I obviously never knew Willie himself because I was born a year after he died. But my father became county librarian in Perth, for Perth and Kinross, in 1949, and because he was very interested in Scottish literature, got to know John Soutar. Dad had a connection already by that time with Christopher Grieve, Hugh MacDiarmid, and MacDiarmid was at that time known to be working, or had just published, the collected poems of Willie Soutar, and there'd been a wee bit of a buzz of controversy around it, because though it was titled The Complete Poems, it wasn't complete, and that led to all sorts of discussions and things going on. Dad was intrigued about the row and thought it was very important to get to know John and find how the family was feeling about it and how things were. Over the years, my father was in Perth. His headquarters were in Perth, though he had no responsibility for the town. He got to know John very well indeed, and in fact, as a result, John asked him whether he would be the trustee for the poetry after John's death. And that meant that though the copyright went to the National Library for Scotland, my father was the individual who had to approve the actual wording that was being used of any printed material and give the say-so for the permission to be used. So he continued to be involved with the copyright for many years after John's death. We actually moved away from Perth in 1959, but I remember extremely clearly the celebrations for what would have been Willie's 60th birthday in 1958. The big concert performance that was held in Perth Theatre. The MacDiarmid came for that and stayed with us for that. The celebration putting a plaque on the house in Wilson Street, the whole things that happened round about it. And I was really very amused. I was in Wilson Street one time and discovered some photographs of that. And there was my eye in the photographs, age 12, long pigtails. And people were saying, we don't know who that is in the photograph. And I was standing there saying, it's me. Aince Upon a Day was my party piece, my first party piece I can remember. The Colin Gibson illustrated Seeds in the Wind was one of my most prized possessions. Very unfortunately, I don't know how it has gone missing, and I don't have a copy of it any longer, which is sad. But I do have all the wee volumes, because my father had the whole set. I mean, there we are. There's the Seeds in the Wind in the unillustrated edition. Some of these are ones which have lost their paper covers, but in fact most of them still have their covers. There are one or two duplicates in it. There's a nice copy of Seeds in the Wind with a thistle on the cover, which is a really lovely one. 3 and 6 net, that was. And this one is one which is signed, Sincerely Yours, Willie Soutar. I need my glasses on to see in detail, because they are lovely things to have. The original wee books that are thin and slim, and you see there's a lovely drawing of Willie, a Finlayson drawing, and there we are. Oh, this was on Bannockburn Day 1933, this one was signed. So it says, Sincerely Yours, William Soutar, Bannockburn Day 1933.
And that meticulous...
Lovely, tiny handwriting. It's just beautiful. It's one of these things that's a real gem. And that sort of thing is just a pleasure to have.
Yes.
Because these, and this was to Evelyn, this particular one. A lot of these had been in the papers beforehand. They'd been published as individual poems. But, you know, having things like this, having seen all the books, knowing John Soutar, who was a big, upright, very fine man. He was a fascinating person to know, to hear the stories of the the work he'd done.
Yes.
He was particularly proud of the work he'd done in the restoration of St John's Kirk in Perth.
Oh, of course.
Because the pillars in the kirk over the years had ceased to be plumb.
I see.
They were and as a result the whole roof was in jeopardy. And he, as a master joiner, actually constructed wooden scaffolding to take the full weight of the roof, so that each pillar was taken down in turn and rebuilt. And you think of that, and you think of some of the things that Willie wrote about the hands of people who were craftsmen, and you see the connections.
Yes.
And you see the way that though Willie may have been in Wilson Street in his bed, he was still part of the life of that community.